This is you. Okay, well, it's not actually you, but pretend it's you. This is you, and you train hard. You do your burpees, your cardio, your weights, and you eat your vegetables. You're serious about your fitness. So serious that you bought a Whoop, because that's what serious fitness people like you do. They buy Whoops so they can prove with numbers and colors that they're super serious. And you love it. But then, Whoop threw you a curveball. They went and released a new Whoop, a Whoop that's even fancier and better than your old Whoop, and now you're feeling left out.
What up, Superhumans? BT here. So you bought a Whoop 3.0, you're loving it, but then Whoop 4.0 came out with all of its new fancy sensors and improved accuracy, and now you've got a hard case of FOMO. Well, today we're going to be comparing the data from both the Whoop 3.0 and the 4.0 to see if there is a big enough difference to justify an upgrade. But before we do, hit that subscribe button down below. Well, what do we know so far? Well, we know that the Whoop 4.0 has a ton more sensors. But is it actually making that big of a difference in what we see data-wise? And I wanted to find this out for myself, so I've been wearing both the Whoop 3.0 and the 4.0, can you see it? Yep, at the same time to get this data so we could do this little comparison. Plus, we'll be comparing other things that aren't data specific. We'll be doing that at the end, so make sure you stick around for the whole video.
Do it.
It's important to note that I tested the Whoop 3.0 for just shy of 2 months. You see, when you first start with Whoop, there's a 30-day adaptation period. Basically, the first 30 days, Whoop uses to calibrate, to create a personal profile on you using your vitals and movement. That's how it knows what kind of workout you just did. It's able to differentiate between you working hard out in the garden and you going for an afternoon run. If I had just tested this for the first 30 days, there's a strong possibility that the data wouldn't have been as accurate as it could be. The data we'll be looking over, of course, is the 3 scores, what Whoop is kind of famous for. We've got strain, recovery, and sleep, and I can tell you right now that there are some really interesting differences between the two devices. Because of all the new sensors, Whoop has stated that a 10% drop in strain score due to its improved accuracy is likely. For the first 20 days of this comparison, remember we're within that first 30 days of baseline calibration, the Whoop 4.0 averaged between 2 and 6 points higher than the Whoop 3.0. But here on this day, things start to shift and we start to get much more similar strain scores between the two devices. And in the last 10 readings, we even see some heavy shifts with bigger days going to the 3 and not the 4. And that's on a day-to-day basis. But what if we were to take all of those readings and average them out over time? Would we see a significant difference? I took all of the data from the Whoop 3.0 and the 4.0 when they were worn simultaneously and for the same amount of time. And if I average them out, I get a daily strain of 11.3 for the Whoop 3.0 and 12.3 for the Whoop 4.0. Obviously nothing significant, and it does fall within that percentage of difference that Whoop stated. Now, unlike strain, when it came to sleep, I found less disparity between the two devices, even within that 30-day baseline calibration. There was one day where I did see a 39-minute difference, but that was the biggest discrepancy. But things I have noticed when comparing the two on a day-to-day basis. First is the heart rate chart. The 4.0 measures far fewer spikes of heart rate. Time in bed, disturbances, efficiency, and respiratory rate are all extremely similar. However, when it came to the sleep stages, I found it to be far more unpredictable. Looking over weeks and weeks of data between the two, I found no predictable trend as to whether or not one device would measure something like REM or deep sleep more or less than the other device. Again, that's on a day-to-day basis, but what if we took a step back and averaged things over time? Would we see a significant difference? The 3.0 gave me an average sleep of 5 minutes and 40 seconds, and the Whoop 4.0 gave me an average sleep of 5 minutes and 42 seconds. Now, this may seem insignificant to you, and that's kind of the point. Like, is there a significant difference averaged out over time that would say, hey, yeah, it is worth upgrading the 4.0 because the numbers are so different, even over a long period of time? And right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. I actually took a poll a while back to see why users were using their Whoop. Was it for the sleep? Was it for the strain? Was it for the recovery? And overwhelmingly, it was for recovery. So given that, I think the recovery data you'll find the most interesting. During the calibration phase, this is where I found the most variance. And you're probably thinking, duh, but this is what I find most unusual. You'll see that the recovery scores are vastly different. But if we look at the breakdown of what makes the recovery score, heart rate variability, resting heart rate, respiratory rate, and sleep performance, you'll see that those numbers aren't that different. Whoop measures your recovery by taking your sleep, your respiratory rate, your resting heart rate, and heart rate variability. And initially, I thought that each of these had the same value in this calculation. However, it's pretty clear to me to see that when looking at this data, Whoop gives more weight to heart rate variability than any of those other metrics. So it stands to reason that the Whoop 4.0 being much more accurate and having a more accurate heart rate variability calculation, you're going to see a more accurate recovery score. And if that is the primary reason you're using a Whoop, well, that's something to take into consideration. Here's my advice. If we just look at this as a 2-month comparison, numbers averaged out as a whole and compared against each other, there's not enough of a significant difference that would justify an upgrade. However, there are significant differences day to day, even after the calibration period, where clearly the 4.0 is doing a better job with accuracy. And just based on my own personal experience, my numbers, there were plenty of days where those differences were significant enough that they influenced my decision as to the activity or the lack thereof that I ended up doing. And this will, of course, affect your fitness progression. Now, here are some things to consider that have nothing to do with the data. How long have you had your device? Remember that batteries have a half-life. And if you've had your Whoop for a significant amount of time, 1 to 2 years, that half-life might be past its prime. And rather than sending your Whoop in if that battery starts dying or not holding a charge and paying for that replacement, well, it stands to reason that maybe just upgrading to the 4.0 might be a better investment of your money and your time. Speaking of battery, the Whoop 4.0 now has a wireless waterproof charger. So if you're like me and you find yourself walking into the shower and not realizing your battery puck is still attached to your Whoop, well, it's not a problem anymore. Whoop now has a brand new clothing line to help you expand the possibilities of where you put your Whoop 4.0. And if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that the bicep band and the neoprene sleeve actually improve that accuracy just a little bit.
We're excited to introduce Whoop Body, featuring Anywhere technology. Whoop Body with Anywhere technology enables the 4.0 to be worn effectively at various points throughout the body.
I actually bought a pair of the boxers, 2 boxers and 1 compression shirt. So what are my experiences using those? Well, first of all, the compression shirt is great. The boxers, not so much, however. You see, I first thought when I got these and saw where the Whoop would be located, which is around your hip, that because the sensor is so close to your center of mass, your center of gravity, things like the gyroscope and the accelerometer wouldn't get nearly the input or action that it would if it were residing on your wrist. And I was right. The day I used the boxers, I got 6 minutes and 39 seconds of sleep with the 3.0, but 9 hours and 57 minutes of sleep with the Whoop 4.0, which is far and away way more sleep than I ever get. And just so you know, those values were not included in the testing. Here's probably the strongest reason to upgrade. You'll have to eventually. I think sooner than later, Whoop is going to stop supporting the 3.0 and continue to support the 4.0 and the 5.0 eventually. And things like repairs, parts, and even updates to the 3.0 will no longer be available. I think at the end of the day, this is nothing worth having FOMO over though. Both are great, both work. but neither are perfect, neither are flawless. And I think if you have a Whoop 3.0, that's going to be good enough for maybe another year. Just my 2 thoughts though. If you like this video, could you do me a huge favor? Hit that like button down in the corner down below. It's free, but it also lets me know what kind of videos you want to see more of. But more importantly, it actually tells the YouTubeverse what kind of videos you want to see more of. And the YouTubeverse is huge, so that would really go a long way. If you would like to see more Whoop inspired videos, hit that subscribe button. It's easy. It's a button. Takes like 3 seconds. If you have a Whoop and you hit that button, you can join my super secret club, which is a society of Whoop members that do competitions and contests where I give away sweet prizes like recovery boots or free months on your Whoop membership. So you should also do that. Thanks again for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.